Why God told Hosea to marry a prostitute and didn't stop her from leaving. According to the Bible, there's a story in the Bible that many of us quietly skim past, partly because it's uncomfortable, partly because it seems too strange to fit our idea of how God works. It's the kind of story that doesn't sit neatly on a Sunday school flannel board, the kind of command from God that seems more like a punishment than a calling. In the very first chapter of Hosea, God says something so startling, so jarring, that it forces us to stop and ask, why? He tells his prophet his voice to the people to go and marry a prostitute. Not a reformed woman, not a symbolic representation, a real woman who would really leave him, betray him, and break his heart. And Hosea obeys. He finds Gomer. He marries her. He gives her a home. He gives her children. He gives her his love. And she walks away over and over again. Now, we can read this as a historical account of a broken relationship. We can call it tragic, poetic, or prophetic. But if we leave it there, we'll miss the whole point. Because Hosea's life wasn't just about his love story, it was about God's. God didn't just tell a prophet to marry a wayward woman. He told his people, through this messy, painful, intimate story, this is what it's like to love you. And that changes everything. Because this isn't just about Israel. It's about us, about you, about me, about the people who know what it means to be unfaithful, who've run from love, who've chosen lesser gods, and who despite everything are still being pursued by the God who doesn't give up. We don't like to think of God in these terms. We prefer the cleaner, neater stories, the miracles, the victories, the sermons on the mount. But Hosea's story takes us into the dirt of real life, into the rawness of betrayal, into the ache of one-sided love, and somehow, through that, into the beauty of redemption. This story forces us to wrestle with big questions. Why would God ask someone to walk straight into heartbreak? Why didn't he stop Gomer from leaving? Why did he let Hosea suffer? And most of all, what does this reveal about the heart of God? This is not a story of failure. It's a story of relentless love, of a God who doesn't just sit on a throne and send blessings from afar, but who enters into the pain, stays when we run, and still whispers, "Come home." If you're ready to hear what God was really saying through Hosea, then let's walk into the story together. It's not pretty, but it's powerful. And if we listen closely, we just might hear our own names in the middle of it. There's no gentle way to ease into what God told Hosea to do. Go. Take to yourself an adulterous woman and children of unfaithfulness. That's what the Lord said. And he didn't say it to a rebellious sinner or a wayward soul. He said it to his prophet, a man chosen to speak his words, uphold his holiness, and model his truth to the nation. Hosea's entire life was built on obedience. He knew God's voice. He lived to serve him. And then came this, a command that looked nothing like what anyone would expect from a holy, righteous God. Think about it. What would the headlines say today? Pastor marries sex worker by divine instruction. You'd raise an eyebrow. You'd probably walk away. And yet, that's the point. God didn't want to preserve appearances. He wanted to expose hearts. Israel had been playing the part of the faithful people of God. They kept the festivals, made the sacrifices, sang the psalms, but their hearts were scattered across every high place and altar of idol worship. They were in bed with other gods. And so, God used Hosea's marriage to reveal the scandal that had always been there, only hidden under the surface of religion. Hosea's marriage to Gomer wasn't just a union. It was a living parable. God was writing his love letter not with ink, but with a life. And the message that he had been loving a people who had been unfaithful from the start, that he had chosen them knowing full well they would betray him, that his covenant wasn't based on their purity, but on his promise. This command shattered expectations. Prophets were supposed to live holy lives, untouched by the filth of sin. But here was God, calling Hosea not just to preach about grace, but to live it, breathe it, feel it in his bones. This is the God we serve, one who breaks through our tidy categories, one who doesn't just talk about love from a distance, but demonstrates it in ways that unsettle us, one who doesn't mind being misunderstood if it means being true to his character. And his character is this: relentless, shocking, upside-down love. After Hosea married Gomer, the story doesn't become a happy ending. In fact, it becomes harder. Gomer has children, some of whom may not even be Hosea's. She wanders, she betrays, she walks out, and Hosea is left holding the broken pieces. And God lets it happen. That's the part that stings, not just the obedience, but the silence. God didn't stop Gomer. He didn't send an angel to warn her, or strike her with guilt, or force her to stay. He let her leave, and Hosea had to. Live with that because love, real love, isn't control. God doesn't manipulate the heart. He woos it, and sometimes He allows it to break. Imagine being Hosea, watching the one you love walk away again, waking up to an empty bed, a half-used blanket, the smell of another man's cologne still on her skin, and knowing you've been faithful, you've been kind, you've been present, but it wasn't enough to keep her. This wasn't just marital pain, it was divine empathy. Hosea was entering into the grief of God Himself. This is how God feels when His people trade Him for idols, when we chase status over surrender, when we choose sin over intimacy, when we say, "I love you," on Sunday and forget Him by Monday. Hosea's pain wasn't wasted, it was prophetic. Through his heartbreak, we see the emotional reality of God's covenant love, not cold, not calculated, but vulnerable, willing to suffer, willing to wait. God could have forced Gomer to stay. He could have made her love Hosea. But that wouldn't have been love. That would have been prison. And God's love is fierce but never forced. Sometimes, the most painful place to be is in the center of God's will. Not because He's cruel, but because He's revealing something bigger. Hosea's pain made visible the invisible heartbreak of heaven. And in doing so, it invites us to reflect. When have we walked away from God's love? Not because He failed, but because we forgot? Eventually, Gomer hits bottom. She doesn't just leave. She ends up in bondage. Most scholars believe she was sold either into prostitution or slavery. She belonged to another man again. But this time, it wasn't just emotional estrangement. It was legal ownership. And then comes one of the most powerful moments in all of Scripture. God tells Hosea, "Go, buy her back." This is more than grace. This is redemption. Hosea doesn't just forgive Gomer, he purchases her. He doesn't just take her back, he goes to the auction block and pays a price to restore her. She was already his wife, but he buys her anyway. What kind of love does that? The same kind of love that would later walk the dusty roads of Galilee, that would be betrayed for silver, that would be beaten, spat upon, and nailed to a cross. The same kind of love that would look at you and me broken, sold, ashamed, and say, "You're still mine." The gospel is embedded in Hosea's story. God doesn't wait for us to clean ourselves up. He comes to the auction. He pays the price. He takes us home. And what was the cost? For Hosea, it was silver and barley. For God, it was His own Son. We can't read this story and not be humbled, because the truth is every one of us is Gomer. We've all sold ourselves to lesser loves. We've all wandered. We've all forgotten who we belong to. But God doesn't shame us. He redeems us. He doesn't just forgive. He restores. And restoration is costly. It means entering our mess, walking into our failure, reclaiming us in public when everyone else would turn away. Hosea bought back what was already his because that's what God does. He doesn't give up. He doesn't let go. He says, "You may have forgotten me, but I haven't forgotten you." So if you're listening and you feel like you've gone too far, messed up too much, broken too many promises, remember this: God doesn't stop loving, and He doesn't stop buying back. If you look closely at Hosea's story, you'll begin to see the shape of something familiar, something deeper than personal tragedy or prophetic drama. It's the outline of the gospel itself, traced in the shadows of a broken marriage. Hosea represents the faithful lover, committed, consistent, willing to pursue. Gomer represents the unfaithful beloved, but wandering, loved, yet always leaving. But even more than that, Gomer represents humanity. She is Israel. She is the church. She is us. And Hosea, he is a whisper of Jesus before Jesus arrives. This story isn't here to shock us, it's here to soften us, to show us that long before the cross, God was already telling us what He would do, that He would chase us, that He would pay for us, that He would stay. Hosea's pain echoes forward to the pain of Christ, who came for a bride that didn't want him, who loved a church that would deny, abandon, and betray him, who didn't just marry the unfaithful but died for her. You can't read Hosea without hearing the gospel. It's woven through every scene: a holy man taking on shame, a betrayed husband pursuing reconciliation, a costly redemption that reclaims what is rightfully his, not because of what she did, but because of who he is. And God makes it clear, this is not just about Hosea and Gomer. This is about how he loves. I will allure her, God says in Hosea 2, I will speak tenderly to her. He doesn't say, I'll scold her until she obeys. He says, I'll win her heart back. The goal was never fear. It was always love, not obligation, but restoration. God knew Gomer would leave. He knew Israel would betray him. He knew humanity would fail, and still he entered the covenant. Still he stayed. Still he chose to love us anyway. That is the gospel in Hosea. It's not about perfection. It's about a God who keeps showing up. A God who doesn't break his promises even when we break ours. A God who, instead of walking away, walks right into the mess to bring us home. So when you wonder whether God can still love you, look to Hosea. When you question whether you're worth rescuing, look to Gomer. And when you need a reminder of what relentless grace looks like, remember the husband who paid the price, and the God who wrote that story long before we ever knew we'd need it. Sometimes the Bible isn't what we expect. It doesn't always give us heroes in shining armor or stories tied up in neat little bows. Sometimes it gives us a broken marriage, a wandering wife, a weeping prophet, and a God who refuses to give up. And that's exactly what we need, because we live in a world of broken covenants, of relationships that fracture, of hearts that wander, and deep down, we're all afraid that our failures have disqualified us from love. But Hosea's story, God's story, says otherwise. It tells us that love is not destroyed by failure, that faithfulness can outlast betrayal, that redemption is possible even when everything seems lost. God told Hosea to marry Gomer not because he approved of sin, but because he wanted us to understand the cost of love, real love, the kind that stays, the kind that pursues, the kind that pays the price. And God didn't stop Gomer from leaving because he doesn't force hearts, but he did go after her. He did make a way back. He did whisper through every moment of her rebellion, "You're still mine." If you've wandered, he hasn't turned away. If you've doubted, he's not done with you. If you've run, he's still pursuing. You are not too far gone. You are not beyond redemption, because the same God who called Hosea to marry a prostitute is the God who calls himself your Redeemer, your Restorer, your first love, and he's not leaving. No matter what you've done, no matter how many times you've walked away, God still wants you back, and he already paid the price. So don't let shame keep you where grace has already reached. Come home. The door is open. The bridegroom is waiting.